two esteemed panelists and are there for the discussion. So in the meanwhile, the chairs are being arranged for them. I must invite, first of all, Mr. Angad Dev Singh, the CEO, Tiger Baby. I love the name. Welcome, Angad. With you coming up, I would love to ask you, like, what was the thought behind, like, Tiger Baby's name? Actually, I really like it. Yes, yes, in the center.
Hello. So I'll tell you why we came up with Tiger Baby. This was actually something that Zoya and Rima, the founders of the company, came up with. Tiger, for us, tiger is very much an animal that is ethnic and Indian, and it's something that roars, and we wanted the spirit of Tiger Baby to very much be like a lion, like a tiger, sorry. And we thought, and Zoya actually thought that baby just sounded really fun with
Wow.
tiger, so Tiger Baby. Yeah.
That's really interesting thought behind Tiger Baby. So can we have a huge round of applause for the wonderful man himself here on the dais?
Thank
Also,
you.
would like to invite our very beautiful and gorgeous woman out here to moderate the session, Ms. Gayatri Gauri, former journalist and film columnist, firstpost.com, actor and scriptwriter. Please put your hands together for the gorgeous woman. And yes, you're looking gorgeous in a sari, and I told you Indian Nari looks beautiful in a sari. Yes.
And a round of applause for Namita, please, and the entire Content Hub team. I think they are doing a really terrific job out here. And love that outfit, even if you called it a Ranveer Singh female. I think it's a very classy and as energetic as Ranveer Singh.
थैंक यू
okay?
यही एक इंस्पिरेशन था आज ये अटायर पहनने का थैंक यू मैम मतलब आपने इतनी तारीफ कर दी आई वुड हग यू फॉर दैट
Ah,
वरना तो लेडी सिंघम चाहती थी बट लेडी रणवीर सिंह
great. And welcome, Angad.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to have you actually. I don't know about the others, but there's been so much gyan since yesterday, you know, and there are a lot of wise people, of course, with lots of experience. And it's so refreshing to see a young face like you and a young cub leading another cub. So how is that going? And tell me first a little about your journey.
So I started when I was about 22. I started producing music videos, ads, corporate videos, a lot of cold calling, working with other directors who were very much emerging and just trying to learn the business. I did that for a couple of years, after which I actually worked at Applause Entertainment for almost 2 years because I really felt like that was the place to learn about the studio business. So I had been in the trenches, I had served the chai, I had dealt with the client when I was making the music videos and the ads and the corporate videos. But
You were how old at that time?
I was 22 when I was 22, 23 when I was producing the ads.
Okay. And now you are
28.
28.
Yeah.
So a round of applause for him. At 28, he's the CEO of Tiger Baby. So
Thank
that's
you.
wonderful. Yeah.
And then I was at Applause. What I really went to Applause for was A, to contribute, and B, to really learn about the content business, and who better to learn from Mr. Nair. So that was a super interesting experience. I was in the creative teams, which I think even for the business, it's so important to learn the creative side of things.
Tell us a little about your experience with Sameer Nair. What exactly did you take from there to Tiger Baby a little bit?
Yeah. So what I think I really took was the way Mr. Nair had actually set Applause up was super interesting. It was very much a creative director model. I very much observed the way he set up his systems, his processes, the way he kind of finds content, the way he deals with people, manages people. So that was really interesting to learn.
Okay. Which shows were you working on at that time? And
Yeah. So
any learning from the making and the response that came from those?
yeah. I think so. So when I was there, we were actually, the Applause was currently in production with a lot of their shows. It was The Office, Criminal Justice, Hostages, Salt City, which just recently released. scam was being made. And what I really noticed was even Applause as a studio, which is quite far away from the actual happenings on the ground. They're very much involved with that story making, storytelling, and creative process. The way they choose their makers, the way they actually supervise what's going on, what's happening, what's going to work, very data driven. Very much trying to kind of be ahead of the trends and take risks. And that was really interesting to see.
Right. So what risks are you going to take at Tiger Baby, and how did you form that? I think you were the only person who was hired by Zoya. So tell us a little about that.
So essentially, it was 2019, and Gully Boy and Made in Heaven, which were co-productions with XL Entertainment, they had just released. And Zoya and Rima essentially came together after that, and they wanted to set up Tiger Baby. They wanted to create a company where they had their own voice, where they could put out content that they really believe in. And so I remember meeting both of them a couple of times, and I was taking a lot of what I learned at Applause and from the studio system, and I tried explaining to Zoya and Rima about how we can kind of set this company up. I remember I went to Zoya's house with a couple of A4 size papers with a lot of drawings and structures and ways we can kind of set up. And what we have essentially concluded is that we want to be a company that does three things really well.
Yeah, before that. So
Yeah.
when you went to Zoya, what was there in those 4 papers, and what was it that she hired you for at that time?
Yeah. So in the papers was very much how we would set up. And I think what's happening in India over the last few years is that a lot of production houses, learning from the platforms that are coming in from internationally, a lot of production houses are becoming formalized. They're not the informal spaces that they once were 5, 10 years ago. A lot of them are getting executives. A lot of them are building systems, processes, structures. They're having creative producers in them. They have a finance team. They have legal teams. They have HR, which I think is super important, which a lot of people don't talk about at production houses. Like, what does HR do? So we wanted to be a company that really is different in that sense and kind of sets the trend. But coming to your question about what Zoya and Rima had at the time, they had multiple ideas. They had about 15 ideas, and they wanted to tell these stories. A lot of these ideas came from various creators, diverse creators, and we wanted to figure out a way to make a company with a voice. We wanted to figure out how we can be artist first, artist driven, tell powerful stories that affect change. How do we tell local stories on a global scale? These are the three things that we decided that day that we really want to do, and then it was the last 3 years where we've tried making that happen.
Yeah, so at that time, I think Rima and Zoya were already well known for their kind of work and what they had done with Excel. So how did Tiger Baby differ from what they were already doing? What was it? What was the vision that they had, and how far has that vision been carried on so far?
Yeah, I think, so the difference between now and then, right? In the first 15, 20 years of their career, they were very much filmmakers, writers, directors. They'd spend 3 to 5 years on one film. They'd really live with the film. They'd make the film. All of a sudden, it's gone to a space where now not only are they doing that, and they want to do that at the highest level, but they're also producing at scale. So the only way to really produce quality-driven content at scale is by being artists first, right? Choosing the right people, getting the right voices, the right storytellers, and then letting them fly.
So let's talk about that first. You know, I think a lot of you out here are writers, right? You're artists, and are there any actors out here? So fine, we have one actor now. So by artists, you mean writers, actors, directors, right?
Creatives.
Creators,
Yeah, yeah,
creators. So talk a little about that, and who was your first artist that you brought in?
Yeah, so a bit about being creative first is that we are a director-driven company, right? There aren't too many studios or production houses that are run and founded by 2 filmmakers. So we knew we were an established brand in some sense, but we wanted to maintain the entrepreneurial spirit of essentially running a startup, which is how we try and run Tiger Baby. But one of the first artists that was kind of brought on was a filmmaker, Rahul Nair. It was his debut. He debuted with Eternally Confused and Eager for Love on Netflix. He's a writer,
Really like
director,
that,
creator.
Yeah. So tell us why you chose him.
So he came in, he had worked on Made in Heaven season 1 as a DA. So he was in the system, he was in the universe, so we knew of him and he knew of us, and he wanted to work with us. He's a writer primarily, and he wrote a show that we thought was extremely fresh. And that's another reason we work with first-time makers, right? Because they come with a completely fresh perspective. Rahul Nair has a very unique voice, which we thought that we could add value to with the resources that we had, with the creative supervisors and producers that we had. We took his show, we worked with him, we packaged it, and we found the right home for it, which was Netflix.
How did you choose him to also direct it? Because he was also a first-time director, right? And when you took it to Netflix, what was Netflix's initial response? How was the working relationship there? Talk about that a little.
You know, so Rahul came in with the script, but he was the creator. This was his story very much. And I feel like when you write your own script, and when the instincts are very much yours, and you have the ability to direct, which we felt he did, then I think nothing is better than that person actually directing it. And we learn that very much from Zoya Rima, who are auteurs themselves, who write and direct and tell their own stories. So we felt he was the right person for it. In terms of our pitching to Netflix, what we actually went with we went with a 10-episode series. We worked with Netflix, and they felt that we should bring it down to 8. We agreed. We reduced the time a bit. I remember it was about 25, 26, 30 minutes each. We thought that it might be more effective to make it 160 minutes, so 20 times 8. And just content that you can be eating food and watching, or you can, just enjoy in a weekend. You can finish the show in a weekend. So that's what we went with.
And also the USP, I believe, was that, it's a young person out in the dating world. So is it because the Tiger Baby policy is to target the young audience, to bring them in? Was that the highlight of the whole thing?
Yeah, so I mean, we are very youth-centric. It's always about kind of capturing that next generation and also trying to understand the cultural context of where we are. And we felt with that show, it was doing a couple of things. And an important part of it was the social anxiety and the kind of anxiety that you feel in the dating world. And we felt Rahul was the right person to capture that. It was English speaking, which was a risk.
So did Netflix object to that, or was that okay with everyone in the team also? I mean, because it was a big risk that you were taking, then you were going to narrow down your audiences that much more, right?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely spoke about it, we evaluated, but we really felt that this show could travel. And being in English, it does definitely take away from the audience. But I mean, with the dubbing, we felt like we could cover our bases. Yeah.
So do you think it kind of goes with the narrative kind of culture that Zoya, Rima, and even Farhan have been into? They represent, or their movies represent the so-called upper middle class also, but at the same time they changed it with Gully Boy. So it's inconsistency with that kind of a role model?
I feel like when we actually choose our stories, the main purpose for us is working with artists and creators from the spectrum. And when I say that, I mean with Gully Boy, for example, it's a very universal story in that it's aspirational. It can connect. So we don't really go out there thinking we want to make it for this class of people. We want our stories to really cut through class. You know, for us, it's not like we target one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, so amongst the, so going back to your artist, encouraging new talent, Archie's is coming up with, a lot of new faces, very exciting faces, some from known stars, and there are some new, fresh faces. Can you take us through that, how you found those new talent as well?
Yeah, so Archie's is essentially the Indian adaptation of the franchise comic. It's a film that's going to be directed by Zoya Akhtar. It's a musical in many regards, and it's about the 60s Anglo community. That's where it's set. In terms of the way we look at it is we want to push out these 7 fresh new faces, right? For us, they're all 7. They're new. They're exciting. They're extremely talented, we feel. And there are some interesting stories. For example, Aditi Dot is someone that I believe Zoya was on Instagram and she saw Aditi Dot. She was singing a song. She's also a songwriter and singer. And she found that reel and she immediately had a meeting with her. When she met her, not only did we love the song, she also felt she would be perfect for Ethel. And so that was one example of how we really use social media to kind of cast for our film and do various other things. The other example was Yuvraj, who's very big in the TikTok space. He's going to be playing one of the 7 leads as well. Yeah.
So after that, you were talking about the second and the third point of your company besides the artist model.
Yeah. The second point is telling powerful stories
Yeah.
that can affect change, that can actually make a difference. And the third is telling local stories on a global scale.
Okay. So what defines powerful? Yesterday, Roy Price, the former Amazon head, he was talking about how it's very easy to differentiate between the good and the bad ideas, but it's very difficult to find the great from the good. So how do you select that kind of powerful, so-called powerful stories?
Yeah.
What goes into it?
So, if you don't mind, I'll touch a bit on pitching and how, we kind of
Definitely most
look at
welcome.
projects.
I think a lot of us out here
Yeah.
will be most interested in knowing that.
Yeah, so what we've kind of experienced at Tiger Baby is that we get various pitches, right? And what I think is really effective and what really works and what we actually use when we go and pitch to studios and platforms is when we see people who come in with one story, right? A lot of the times they kind of bring in 3 or 4, they say, make one of these. But I think the approach should always be you go in with one story, you go in with one deck, or you go in with one script, and if it's at a concept stage, really know what you're trying to pitch, right? Know what you're trying to pitch, be extremely well researched, know your story better than anyone. Don't worry about who's going to play what or who you're going to get for the costume stylist. Really think about the characters, the story, do your research, and most importantly, know why you want to tell this story. And I think when you can figure out why this story is important to you, then that in itself can be very powerful. And I think whenever we choose stories, we first and foremost look at who's telling the story, who is the creator, because ultimately all stories can be important. And we do try and choose stories that have social messages. We're making a film that is about social media. It's a coming of digital age story. It's essentially about authenticity in a world of projection. And so we try and choose these themes that not only can we relate with, but we feel like can be universal.
Okay, so when you go to OTT platform to pitch your own stories, the normal questions that they ask is, okay, we like the idea, we like the concept, we even like the entire, maybe sometimes they read the entire scripts. Then they slowly move to seeing it as a project, So do you advise people out here to go with the project, so-called, a name attached to it? Talk about that.
Yeah, I think for a writer or a director, right, who's maybe a first-time director, the best way, in my opinion, is to go to production houses. And I say that because when you go to a production house, or when you go to a more niche company, they can really provide that support. And they can provide the resources and the support to pair you up with the right people. You know, you can even go to agencies who will be able to help you package your film, because I know what you're saying. Sometimes that helps. It gives you a bit of heft in your pitch. So just meeting the right people, the people you can kind of relate to, the people that you feel are good for the job, I think that's the way to do it. And then if your story is good and you have all of that checked out, then I think you will get the people you want. You will get the right people.
Okay. And, you know, with the current scenario, or like Netflix laying off a lot of people and their stories not really working and reaching out or connecting with the audiences, OTT platforms have become much more selective. So does that put more pressure on production houses like yours?
It definitely does, and I think it can only be a positive thing, right? Because this is with a lot more platforms coming in internationally, and with the local platforms doing so well. You look at Sony Live, you look at Z, you look at Hotstar. So there's incredible competition, and this is only going to make us more competitive. It's only going to make us want to try harder, work harder, find the right people, find those next best stories. So I think it can only be good for content in general. And I think this is the way that India is really going to become a major player with content. So it's great in many ways. It's an opportunity in the chaos.
And Tiger Baby will be a big part of it. And, you know, I remember Zoya was once talking about how currently people have changed, gender roles have changed. So how does that change the narrative at the moment?
Do you mean in terms of the content you're putting out?
Yes, yes.
I think, we live in a state of flux, right? Things are always changing. And that's something that's interesting about data, right? For us, we definitely look at data and it's important, but we very much look inward. We look at instincts and we look at what we think is going to work. And I think that's the best way to trend set. You have to innovate, you got to trend set. And I think even when you look at Farhan with Dil Chahta Hai, the data would have probably said, don't do this, it's not going to work. But that's something that we take very seriously, being one step ahead and acknowledging the data, but then going with what we believe in. And we're very sure of, when we have something, we're very sure that if we believe in this, we will go with it 100%.
Yeah. So yesterday, Sameer Nair was here and he spoke about how you might make something now, but you are actually looking 18 months ahead of by the time it's going to be released. So what exactly goes into that? I mean, what do you look at? How futuristic do you get?
Again, I think that's very much something that's very trend driven, right? Now you see these massive films that are doing so well in the South, and now now you're going to see a lot more of those films coming out of Bollywood or the Hindi film industry. But again, we just don't think about it like that. We're just not wired in that way. What we do think is that if you can accurately capture the zeitgeist of what is happening today, then your stories will do well, you know. And if you are very much understand your surroundings, what's happening, you talk to people, you do your research. 18 months or today, it's gonna work. If it works in 18 months, it's likely that it works today as well.
So what's next for Tiger Baby? What are the kind of work that you're looking at? Are you also only looking at OTT? Are you looking at theater audience? What's going on?
So we're quite agnostic when it comes to where and how we distribute. We don't always make the decision of where to place the project at times right in the beginning, right? It's a process for us. And again, I think what's changing even more so than ideas and stories is the actual industry and the theatrical business and the OTT business. So we very much evaluate it based on the core keystones of the project. Like that might be do we think that the story will work better on a platform? Do we think it will track in the theaters? So these are things that we kind of evaluate, and we even evaluated right till we want to go into production. So that's something that is an ongoing process, but we are very open to both. I mean, it's not something that we prefer one over the other.
Any example of what's going to come out next? Anything that's in the making?
Yeah. So I mean, Archie's, which you previously spoke about, is Netflix, and we felt that would be the right home for the project because, like I told you earlier, it's very much telling a local story which is adapted on a global scale. So that's what we wanted for Archie's.
So before we move to the next one, so to talk a little more about Archie's, why Archie's? Because it's been told several times internationally as well in various formats. And it's been rehashed into different kinds of stories. But of course, the central characters are, copied, so-called. So why Archie's now, and now, today?
Okay, so I'll just go a bit into how that adaptation is working, right? It's not exactly that we're taking an Archie's story and telling it over here. What we're really doing is we're taking pieces of the Archie's universe. Like we're taking the characteristics of who Archie is. We're taking the characteristics of Jughead. Like we're taking those characteristics and kind of saying it and putting it in an Indian setting, an Indian universe. And we felt strongly about this franchise, A, because Zoya and Rima grew up with Archie comics, so it was something that was very close to them. B, we think that the themes are still very much universal. So it's very exciting for people like me and a lot of younger people in the team to see how this universe and this franchise that we've heard about so much really coming to life in a completely different way, a completely different setting. So we think that's really exciting. And lastly, it is a universal brand name. So we do think that will help it find the right home globally, worldwide, and not just at home.
Okay, and your next project that you were going to talk about after Archie's, what else, besides that, what else are you working on?
Yeah, so the next project is a theatrical, the Khoge Hum Kaha, which I was talking about, which is very much, we feel that it would work theatrically for now at least, is because a lot of the themes, which is social media and authenticity in a world of projection, will connect with audiences. So that is essentially why we think it will work in theaters.
So those are the two primary things that you guys are busy with at the moment.
Yeah, those are the two that are currently in production. We have
Okay.
a couple of others in prep and post.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you were talking about Zoya and Rima's process. How do you work together?
So for me personally, I think the one thing that I really lacked, other than maybe the 2 years at Applause, is learning from a mentor maybe in the business space, right? And that's something I always think about. But what I've realized working with Zoya and Rima is that when you're doing something at a high level, it's very similar to doing it across industries or across things you're doing. So what I've really taken from them is things like the way they work together, the way they choose scripts, the way they choose the people they work with, and how they are so obsessed with quality and excellence. And I think that's something that I really take, which is actually one of the values of our company. It's excellence, integrity, and leadership. And I think all three of those very much encompass what they stand for, what they believe in. Integrity, not only in the way we conduct ourselves, but also in the way we tell stories. Leadership in the way we choose our partners, in the way we choose our directors, and in the way that even the team members, we want people to come in who are leaders, who believe in themselves. We want to empower them to be the best they can be. But watching them, I think they speak a lot about their process, and for me it's very much, the best comparison is it's a beautiful game of tennis. And you really see them going back and forth in their writing process. They have, they differ in a lot of ways, and they really respectfully kind of argue it out, and they try and come up with the best solution, and they're always thinking about what is the best way to put this out there. It's not about am I right or are you right or choosing my character over your character. It's how can we be the best and how can we do that. So I think that's very inspirational for all of us at Tiger Baby who work there, and we very much learn an incredible amount for them, just in terms of the way they work and they function, and they wake up at 6 a.m. and they're determined every single day. So that's refreshing to see.
That's fantastic to know. So on that note, also if you could just lastly share with the audience, yesterday Alankrita Srivastav mentioned how everyone needs emotional resilience to be there, to hang in there. So you as a young person want to share something about your own experience and how you deal with it?
Yeah, I think the first and most important thing for me was always to acknowledge that I lack experience, right? I'm gonna be working with and dealing with EPs. I'm gonna be working with people who have a lot more experience than me. So how do I kind of try and fill in that gap without taking the decades to do so? And a couple of things that I try doing in my own life is whatever aspect of my life, I try and do the best, right? So for example, I do Vipassana because I think Vipassana has really helped me. It's provided me with balance and equanimity in dealing with situations, managing my stress. I try reading a book every week. I remember I camped out at my lawyer's office for about a week, and I just learned as much as I could about contracts and deals. And so I just feel like I have to compensate the lack of experience with tenacity and with learning and knowledge. Because at the end of the day, if you're talking to a 40-year-old or a 45-year-old, they are going to believe that you don't know what you're talking about. It's very simple. And the only way to kind of, to really, know what you're talking about and add value is to have knowledge and to learn as much as you can and read as many books as you can. And so that's what I try doing.
Great, wonderful. I wish you all the very best, Angad.
Thank you so much.
And any questions from the audience? Do we have time for that?
Do we have?
No. No?
We don't have, so I think we can take the questions offline.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. But I do hope I asked all the questions that you guys had in mind.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, and I must say thank you, Angad, for bringing out that knowledge to all of us. Sometimes surprises act as a curiosity for all of us, and it brought out so much of curiosity out of us कि मैं तो जानना चाहती थी यार, which topic are you talking about? And that was really up to the mark. Thank you so much, ma'am, for bringing such a wonderful session and being a perfect and no doubt a very charming moderator of the session. Thank you so much. I would request both of you to please come forward for the photo op. For the photo op, please come forward, and would like to request ma'am, means Gayatri ma'am, to kindly felicitate our speaker, Angad. Can we have the hamper, please? And would request our esteemed panelists to please join us at the Speakers Lounge for a short and sweet Speakers Bite. After that, we are breaking for lunch. Can we have the hamper? Yeah, thank you. And how would I not take the opportunity to felicitate our gorgeous woman on the stage? Yes, ma'am, of course. So we'll take the opportunity to do that.